Welcome back. Let's continue with more news. In fact, let's take you to the scenic Drakensberg in KwaZulu-Natal province, where the annual Southern Africa Telecommunications Network and Applications Conference, SATNAC, is taking place. SABC News Senior Business reporter Nompumelelo Siziba, in fact, is there. You've obviously been bringing us updates throughout the day. Perhaps you could give us an update on your end. I know AI has taken center stage today.
Very much. We're here at SATNAC in the Drakensberg, where, of course, specialists are talking about the area of digital technologies with specific focus on artificial intelligence. Earlier in the day, the Deputy Minister of Communications and Digital Technologies did give a speech to the delegates, just telling us around what government's thoughts are around the issue of AI, talking about working in partnership with industry, and of course the key issue of regulation. Well, to tell us more about it, I am joined by Philip Mapulani. He is the Deputy Minister of Communications. Sir, thank you so much for speaking with us here at the SABC. Just tell us initially, before we story, why government has identified digital technologies as a key strategic platform to catalyze economic growth in South Africa.
Thank you very much, Nompu, for having me. Government has identified the digital economy, as we call it, because it's one sector of the economy that is going to grow. As you know, that we are in the era of the revolution. There are technologies revolution forward. The economy powered by economy. It is expected that 50% GDP was going to be digitized by the end of last year. In fact, it was digitized by the end of last year. Economy is quite important. Great potential for our economy to grow. But as you know, more and more going online, they are conducting their business. The economy is quite important.
It has become very strategic indeed, and thanks for explaining why from a government perspective it's important. And one of the things that keeps on coming out regularly is the fact that there is no regulation right across the globe. I think China is the first country that seriously looked at regulation to intervene for the adverse side of things like artificial intelligence. What is it that government is doing in terms of preparing some sort of regulatory framework to deal with digital technologies like AI?
As you say, there is no regulation currently. We are a little bit behind. Introducing regulation is concerned. We have moved in the era of broadcasting to try and regulation. Currently, there is a white paper that we have. We seek to regulate, in particular, the OTT platforms. But in the era of...
All right, let's continue to monitor developments on that end. In fact, artificial intelligence, as we heard from Nompumelelo, is playing a key role. It's taking center stage at the annual Southern African Telecommunications Network and Applications Conference, also known as SATNAC, which is underway in KwaZulu-Natal. Artificial intelligence is a process in which machines are taught certain repetitive skills and they're able to perfect just like humans. The conference now brings together masters, doctoral students with government, ICT specialists and leaders from industry, all under one roof to explore the latest developments in given technologies. SABC News Senior Business reporter Nompumelelo Siziba, in fact, also has more there. Let's take a look.
Thanks very much for joining us here at the SATNAC conference, where a number of issues are being discussed. Front and centre is the issue of artificial intelligence. It has good points and bad points. And so, of course, the issue of regulation as well is going to be high on the agenda. But joining me to discuss this matter further, I'm joined by Wendy Pienaar. She's from Deloitte, as well as Rutsani Molalti, also from Deloitte Africa. Thank you very much, both of you, for joining me. Perhaps I can start with you, Rutsani. Just tell us, what is generative artificial intelligence? Why is it important? How does it impact our lives?
I guess, when you think about what it is today, what comes to mind is often ChatGPT. But if we take a few steps backwards, you'll remember from a few years ago, a few of the trends that we've seen, that AI has now made us more able to detect images, for example. Is this a cat? Is this not a cat? It's also enabled us to do things like forecasting. What will be the next thing, given the sequence of data that we are seeing now? This is a very different approach to artificial intelligence, and a lot of work has been done, and in particular with deep learning. Now, generative AI is the ability to use these models to now generate new insights and new data. So you can imagine, if we feed it a number of images of animals, these models are now able to produce a new animal. Another cat. We feed it a bunch of humans, it can now produce a model. So this is what generative AI is about. It's about these AI models that are able to create content. So it's the modern YouTuber, if you like.
Okay, so at a practical level, Wendy, for businesses who are listening and watching, what does this mean for them? How do they have to embrace this new technology? What do they need to be doing currently?
Great question. I think the key thing for businesses today is to create awareness. It's to be aware of all the different levels of AI and the opportunities that it provides. I talk about the ambidextrous organization. That means an organization needs to exploit some of its existing capabilities, but needs to leave time to explore new things, new opportunities, like AI, generative AI producers, especially in the creative space, in the entertainment space, and in many other disciplines. So I guess my advice to businesses is be aware, get to know it, and really understand the implications of what sits behind it.
So, Rutsani, given the fact that there are pros and cons to this technology, what is it that not only businesses but other role players need to be aware of and mindful of as they go into this realm of artificial intelligence?
I think one of the big concerns today is a concern around bias. So you can imagine, if the type of data that these models are trained on has biases about a certain population, a certain subset of the market, that won't produce positive outcomes for us. So that's a big concern. And I think the other concern is also privacy. So you can imagine, if I'm sitting at work, I'm playing around with the ChatGPT as an example, I'm copying confidential company data into these models, and these models now have access to this data. They are further trained on it. It's possible for someone else to give it a prompt on the other side, and it spews out exactly what I gave it as confidential customer data that I was asking questions about. And maybe a last one as well is that these models can hallucinate. And part of the hallucination comes from how they've been set up is to sound convincing, to be confident, to sound correct at all the time. And they improve their learning by actually using the data that they produce to be further trained on, which creates a further complexity. So at Deloitte, we think about the ethical AI framework. How do we approach AI, not just from a technology point of view, but in consideration of these ethical issues, which are often social in nature, they are privacy and regulatory in nature, they are business concerns in nature. All of that need to be taken into account as part of how we build models and deploy them in the market.
So, Wendy, the vast majority of businesses are small businesses. Your large businesses, they'll have departments that deal, with these technological issues and so on. How does a small business person deal with these issues and protect sensitive data? What do they need to do to protect themselves that's not going to cost them the bank?
Absolutely. I think for the first thing is the big businesses are producing a lot of services that smaller businesses can consume. So I think as this develops, more services will be available to those small businesses to help them to either develop more customer service or customer experience type of initiatives. And so I think it'll be readily available that small businesses can consume off a menu of different services. I think for small businesses to protect themselves, again, it goes back to the awareness. It goes back to understanding what are the pros and cons that Roswani mentioned around these different services that can be provided.
Thank you to you both for speaking to me. I was speaking with Wendy Pinar and Roswani Malaudzi. They're both from Deloitte Africa. They're experts in this area and give advice and write reports to businesses on how to move forward with new technologies like artificial intelligence. It's back to you in studio.